Well, we still have a few more days left of the Personal Freedom Revolution Challenge video series. Today is day 25. As always, thank you for being here. It's so exciting to see you working on creating the life that you want. And today we are talking about triggers. I wish I had more time to talk about triggers because it's a very lengthy subject actually. And like I said, we'll be doing a whole video series and program on cognitive therapy and looking at your thought process. But when you think about triggers, what's the typical thing that first comes to your mind? For most, it would be a gun. So in this case, let's think of a gun shooting, and let's think of a crime being committed. Because when there's a crime, something is stolen. And in this case, we are looking for something that is being stolen. What's being stolen is your peace of mind. And that's happening when the trigger is pulled. So what are those triggers? Well, those triggers are those thoughts that lead you in a direction of feeling certain ways and then acting certain ways. For a lot of us, what we think is the trigger is the situation. And actually, that's a way to find out the trigger. The situation, what causes us to start thinking certain ways. But in all actuality, one of the things I want you to understand is that the situations are never the cause. All right, it's always the thoughts that are associated, and that's why we want to find out what those thoughts are. And I'll give you an example. If today, for instance, I was at my job and I closed a huge account, made a big commission, my boss was really happy with me, and he said, go home early, and I got into traffic, and there was big traffic on the way home. Well, I'm feeling so good. I'm on the phone, I'm talking with my spouse, my friends, whoever, telling them about the sale I just closed and how well I'm doing, and the traffic doesn't bother me. So often we think traffic is the trigger that gets us going crazy and thinking crazy and getting mad. But it's not, because in that situation, the traffic didn't have me thinking those thoughts. In another situation where my boss sent me home early telling me that, I'm doing a lousy job and I lost a big client and I got stuck in traffic, I'm feeling anxious, angry, and so I said, damn that traffic! Traffic's driving me crazy. Well, the traffic's not driving me crazy. It's what I'm thinking about that's driving me crazy. Another trigger you might think is, for instance, I have a job interview, and so I'm feeling anxious. And so the job interview is what's causing my anxiety. Well, again, it's not the job interview that is causing my anxiety. If we look at what we're thinking about I'm no good at job interviews. They won't like me at this job. I'm not going to get this job. I don't like going on job interviews. And as I am thinking those thoughts, I am getting anxious. So yes, the situation might be the trigger that gets me into my thoughts, but it's actually my thoughts that are the trigger that puts me in the mood that I'm in and creates my behavior accordingly. So what we want to look at is both situations and automatic thoughts. And what automatic thoughts are we having? And how can we discover what those automatic thoughts are and how can we combat them? Now, there's a way to change the channel once we discover what those triggers are. But one of the most important things first is to discover where are those thoughts coming from. And you can find them when you're having emotional shifts because we think that the emotion is creating what we're thinking. Again, it's not what is creating what we're thinking. We're first thinking something and then we have the emotion and the behavior. Without the thought, if you're not thinking something about anxiety, you're not experiencing anxiety. If you're not thinking something about anger, you're not experiencing anger. So the different emotions that we are experiencing are related to the automatic thoughts we're having, which can be associated to different situations. But once we change our core beliefs and our automatic thoughts, the situations don't pull that same trigger. So we don't want to blame the situations. We don't want to say these situations hold us hostage, okay? What we want to find out is what are we thinking? And there's a process behind that. I'm just giving you a very general topical overview right now. I'll get into more detail in the podcast and in the notes to give you some ways of looking at what those triggers are and how you can turn the channel. One of the important factors that we're working on, though, is building a fundamental base of loving ourselves, because the more we love ourselves and the more that we feel better about ourselves, then those situations don't pull the same automatic thoughts that create those triggers that we get into behavior that we don't want. And that's what we're really trying to change, is our automatic behavior, because we want to change how we eat, how we exercise, how we deal with the people in our life, how we work, how we spend money. We want to change how we create the life that we're living, and we want to change our experience. We want to enjoy it more. And we have to examine what are the thoughts that are driving our life, because it really is a fact that your life is a matter of perception. When you change your thoughts, you change what you are perceiving, and therefore you change what you're experiencing in life. I always tell people, nothing in your life has to change for you to enjoy it more, other than the seat in which you're looking at your life from. Unfortunately, we often look at our life through the lens of these automatic thoughts that come up that we're not appreciating what we have. We never feel what we have is enough. That's why the grateful list is so important. So we're going to talk about this more in the podcast. I'm going to call it Thought Detective in the podcast, and I'll give you some notes on this too. Right now, think about the emotions and the situations that create these automatic thoughts, and let's see how we can change them.